Here it is. Okay, Center 4. We're going to be totally wrapped up by 7:30 tonight, so that's awesome, 1 hour. Okay, so this is where they're going to have a chance to see inside a seed. So you're going to start by giving each student a hand lens. We've got a whole bunch of magnifying glasses and stuff in here. And then you're going to want to give them a lima bean that's been soaked overnight or maybe even for a couple days. I soaked this lima bean over the weekend even, and it's like really starting to grow. So I have a huge, I will even get more lima beans. You don't have to go to the store and buy these. You can just drop by school, grab a handful enough for the class. You're going to want every student to have one so that they can dissect it and look at it for each kid that comes through your center. So no need to run to the grocery store. We'll have them in the bin. And then you soak them 2 or 3 days ahead of time so they look like this. And then, I think this one's really busting out. And then you talk about it. Is it a seed? How does it grow? Show them how to open the seeds carefully so they can even probably just do it with their hands. And they fall apart, so they'll be gentle. And then they want to find out how it turns into a plant, and that's what they're doing when they're dissecting it. And I could do a much better job of showing you guys if our document viewer was working, but it's not. So anyway, and you want to use these diagrams. I have a whole bunch of diagrams of the lima bean. So these will all be laminated, and you'll be able to see like how they grow, all their different parts that they have. And then here is another lima bean right here, the dicot in the bee family. So it starts out as just a bean, and then eventually turns into this. And then have a brief discussion of the difference between monocots and dicots, which is a little over the head of probably first and second graders. But, well, the seed coat, you're going to talk about that first, and it's the hard layer that protects the inside of the seed. And then the, I never pronounced this one right, cotyledons, the scientists in here? Huh? Okay. And that's what stores the food. So, and it's just like the major part of the bean. And then the embryo is the baby plant that looks like a little stump on the inside of a seed. And when you look at these diagrams, all that stuff is on there that you can show the kids. And then we have a corn kernel. And I just kind of started soaking these today. There'll be a whole bunch of like little popcorn kernels in here as well. And talk about how it's different or the same. And then a lima bean is actually a dicot. You might want to write that down because it splits into 2 parts. And a corn seed is a monocot, and it only has 1 part. So di meaning 2, mono meaning 1. So, and then you work as a group to identify the parts of the corn kernel, which will also have diagrams. And then there's some stuff in the books that you can look at. And then if you want to bring in any other seeds besides the lima bean and the corn kernel, you can bring in stuff like green beans, pumpkin seeds. You know, you can just mess around with this in whatever way you want to do for your center. And then if you really want to get into it, I have a knife in here and a baggie and a cutting board. But we highly suggest that you run the knife so we don't get in trouble. But it's in there if you want it to be like picking things apart. Let's see. Then the very last part of this section is called a bean identification dichotomous key. And we have done this in previous ELF centers where here is a 15 bean mix and maybe they have no idea which beans are which. And say, you know, maybe your parents make soup out of this sometimes, that type of thing. And if you go through this key, it'll say sort your beans according to the kind. So they all sort them in the different colors and that types of things. And then it says use the bean key to find out the name of each bean based on your observations. So when you identify a bean, they can glue it to construction paper and label it. We can skip that part or you guys can do it, whatever. Number 1, is your bean round? If yes, go to step number 2. Is your bean bean-shaped? If yes, go to step 4. So by the time you go through all of these steps, every single bean in here will be identified. So, and some of them not till the very end. The very last one on number 12, is your bean tan or dark red? If yes, it's a cranberry bean. So You just kind of go through this with them. The younger students, you will for sure need to facilitate this whole thing with them as a group, with your little center groups coming through. The older kids, if you want 3rd and 4th grade to like have them go through this as partners and see who can get done first and did they get the correct beans, that type of stuff. It's all on here. So, and then of course there's always books if you have time. We always throw in some books, like if you accidentally have time at the end and you need a little time filler, or you want to look at some pictures in here, the books are always here. But usually, most people never have time to get to the books. So, and then this is also a cute little handout on dicots and monofats. There's tons of stuff in there if you're like confused about the dicot and monofat thing. So, alrighty, that's it on this center. Does anybody have any questions on this one? Okay.
Do we soak one kernel stew?
I started, it never said to in the outline, so I just did it. It's not like you can take a knife to it, so I was soaking it just to see if it would soften up. And in 1 day's time, it really hasn't, so maybe give it a couple days and see if it makes a bigger difference where they could like kind of dissect it. So add that to your little outline. Yes? Yeah. Wesson oil. Okay, guys, so I love volunteers that come up with that information. So if you soak it in Wesson oil for how long? Like a day? It'll be much easier to dissect with a knife.
And it actually comes apart like an onion.
Awesome. Well, how do you know this? Were you playing around with it one day?
Unfortunately, I used to work in movie theater, and it was really bored in between shows.
Right. See, that comes in handy. Okay, oh, and also, there is one little part I forgot to mention in that whole monofat dicot, the 15 bean identification thing. It will ask the kids to do a little bit of measuring. Is your bead such and such centimeters or whatever? I threw in some rulers in here. Enough so if they're doing partners, you know, each group has a ruler. So, all right.